Spreading the floor. We're back. Let me put that down a little bit.
Welcome to Spreading the Floor.
How are we all doing today? We're doing good. We're doing all right.
With your hosts,
everyone at home?
Jacob Cooperman and Nigel Petty Fernandez.
No Nigel today, unfortunately. We don't have a Nigel in here. He was horrifically hacked while going up for a layup in a basketball game a day ago. So he's sidelined out. A lot of people are saying it's season-ending. It really isn't. He just kind of bit his tongue. So it's all swollen. Can't come in, but it's okay. We were gonna have someone come in anyway. We have him here in the studio with us today. It is Max Gilson. He was on the cards. He was on the cards to guest anyways. So we said, you know what? Come on, make the trip down. He was gracious enough to make the trip down. Thank you again.
No problem.
And we got him in the studio here. He is the head of the Noise Media. So all right, let's start off this interview. What do you do? What is your specific job at the Noise Media? Because I was looking on the website, and I know you do a bunch of different stuff. But if you had let's say if you had to categorize it into 3 different things, what would you say is your position? Or if you want to categorize them more, I don't know.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the pod today.
Yeah, no problem.
Glad to be in studio. So the Noise Media, we're looking to build a network and brand, and what I would say for first and foremost, definitely be content director. So really just we do a podcast, we have articles coming out, so I manage the small staff that we have with articles,
right.
And so that's the content direction. And then secondly really is the head bettor. So we're a sports betting show, we're a sports betting podcast. We're really looking to teach people how to bet correctly, what to do, how to approach games, how to analyze games, and also just how to kind of take the public out of the equation, really start to understand how the sharps are playing, how the sharps are betting. So what I'm doing is putting out daily picks in our Discord, which you guys can join if you follow the links in our description on our social media, or head to thenoisemedia.com/newsletter. Get access to our Discord there. So I'm sending out daily picks, engaging with the community, just talking to everyone, answering questions and stuff like that. And then otherwise, just working on how to keep growing the brand. Okay, so
you said betting, right, and sending out picks. Now on your website, I looked. 2 things. You said you pride yourself on smart betting, and we had a little bit of a back and forth about this on FaceTime. You also said on your website, am I getting this right? Sabermetrics?
Yeah, Sabermetrics.
Yeah, so. I'm dumb. So can you explain? Can you explain to me what that means? Because I'm not sure.
So Sabermetrics is a term mostly used for MLB.
Right.
But all that is using deeper statistics than what you're used to, especially if you're watching mainstream ESPN, you're watching Fox Sports, watching those mainstream shows. We're getting into kind of stats that are actually a little bit more predictive of the outcomes of games, and we're trying to understand them and kind of talk through them in a way that both people can understand, but also people who want to learn a little bit more about how to approach them, how to look for different kinds of stats, and really it's a lot of probability. So if you can find certain stats that have a high correlation with the result of winning a game, you got yourself something to work with there. So it's Sabermetrics is a nice way to put it. It's a fun word to use just because it sounds fancy, but
right.
It's really just deeper stats about baseball.
Okay, and that can't be applied to all sports. That's just baseball, or is that?
No, I'm pretty sure this term Sabermetrics itself has been Brian Kenny on Clubhouse Confidential. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. He was using it all the time.
Coach Kenny.
Yeah, but for other sports, the concept of deeper analytics is definitely alive and well. It's just maybe not necessarily called Sabermetrics.
Okay, so you said that you have that formula, right, where you kind of tally up everything, take everything into account. Was that the formula you were talking about? And kind of expand more on that, because I think a lot of betting now, like we were talking about this on the FaceTime call again, a lot of betting these days I feel like is go with your gut. Right. It's promoted like bigger guys like Barstool, right? Where they have shows where it's stylized. Like, I don't know, do you watch college football pick'em?
Yeah, game day and
hilarious,
stuff like that.
Yeah, but probably not the best place to go to for picks. You want, you kind of, correct me if I'm wrong at any point, you want to fill in that gap where you could still be entertaining, but you have that formula where you can advise people in the right direction, and you can let people know what the best and the safest pick is at any given time.
Absolutely. I think, the biggest thing when you're looking at betting, when you want to become a bettor, you want to transition from an amateur bettor to a, quote unquote professional bettor. The most important thing is to stop looking at trying to pick winners and losers of games.
Right.
It's really about finding value in a number and having probability that, the probability that that's going to hit for you. So when you have a spread, if you have a certain percentage chance that you think that team is going to cover that spread, if you have that and it's higher than what the book is giving you as a price, so there's a price involved as well. It's not just the spread. So if you have an advantage there, then realistically, you have yourself a good value bet. You have something called positive expected value. And that's what we're looking to do. But, realistically, what we do with the pod, what we have in the Discord group is like, listen, you look at a guy like Portnoy and Big Cat on Barstool.
Right.
They're making crazy bets. They're having a good time. They're sweating. They're watching the games. Marty Mush on Barstool too, right?
Yeah.
We do all that. We have a great time. We sweat. We celebrate our wins. We win big. But the core is that we know how to do it right. So we're not setting out guesses to people. We're giving people positive expected value plays and teaching them how to make them for themselves as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, just from talking to you now and over the phone, you seem like a very bright individual. So I think
I hope so.
I mean, unless, if you're not, then you're giving people these errant picks. But no, I think that in both the same way that you're giving people what they need, a niche, right?
Right.
Where you have Barstool, which is the more entertaining side with guys like you said, Marty Mosh, Rico Bosco, Dave Portnoy, Big Cat. But you're also serving this little pocket where people, if they want, because think about it, betting in general, if you figure out a way to bet better, that's autumn. I've heard guys, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I've heard about guys that would learn how to shoot dice the same exact way. He did that for 50 years straight or something crazy like that. And he went into the craps casinos and he would rack up the bills. So if you're able to give someone that service, that I don't see any reason why that couldn't be successful, even if, and I know you have your co-host there, and you said on the website he kind of brings the confidence and the swagger.
Yeah.
I think, and it's great to have that. I think that people would even, because there's you can do betting plugins to your TV. I think it's something along those lines where you could have people tune in, even if it isn't always just joking around like Barstool does. People are going to tune in for better picks because at the end of the day, that's money.
Right. I mean, think of it this way. This is the best way to put it. In our Discord group, so I don't know if, everyone's familiar with Discord, but it's an app like Slack a lot of people know of. And really it's channel-based conversations that you can have. And, I have a channel in there. That's my official picks every day, my card every day for free. You see on Instagram, on Twitter, there's guys that charge $1,000 a month, to send you picks. And listen, you don't need to do that. You want to learn how to do it right. You want to learn how to do it yourself. You want to learn how to actually question methods behind why those guys are doing what they're doing, not just saying, oh, well, trust me, I make a lot of money. Like, no, actually ask me why that is, or give me alternative information. That makes me a better as well. So, but my point being, when you're in that Discord group, if all you want is good picks, that's what you'll get at the very basic. You'll get picks to your phone or your computer, whatever you want, every day. When you sit down on Sunday morning, you're like, well, what am I going to bet today? There it is. You got prop bets. You got straight bets, a little teaser action going in. So
okay,
there's all kinds of stuff. But if you want to go deeper, you want to ask questions, you want to learn about this stuff, you want to hear, what you need to look for in these games, you want to understand how to break down games at a different level, that's what we're looking to build up. And at the same time, just kind of having normal conversations with that emphasis, So not everyone, so we have a couple co-hosts on the podcast, and we talk about games, and we talk about what we're looking for in games. And no, not everyone provides, such a deep thought into it. But what everyone is doing is giving a betting emphasis. Everybody's putting it into the perspective of making a smart bet. And again, nobody's going to sit here and tell you, well, I'll pay me $1,000 and I'll tell you the Yankees are going to win tonight. That's not what we're going to do. But we'll go into the details of why there's value on a certain game at a certain time, and you can apply that every day, and you can just go straight to the Discord and get those picks.
Right. Okay, Matt. Well, listen, hearing from you say this, right? Hearing you say this, I should say, excuse me. It sounds like it's more like a community.
Absolutely.
Where everyone kind of weighs in, but the backbone is, I'll keep calling it, I'm not even sure it's a formula, but I'll keep calling it a formula just for logistics sake. That formula that you have, or the the trust that you build up as well on the side.
Yeah, that's
everyone
true.
everyone can keep going back to that pond and have open, constructive conversation. Again, whereas other people would just say, hey, bet on this, da 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 da. And even over the phone, we were talking about this. You don't strike me as a superstitious person per se.
No.
You're definitely more of an analytical person. You like having hard facts, right?
Right.
To the point where I remember you were telling me you wouldn't. Yankees are your team, correct?
Yeah, for baseball, Yankees.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a lot of people would say, I know that the Yankees are going up against, let's say, the Houston Astros back when they were stealing signs and nobody knew about it. I don't know about the Yankees, but I'm going to bet on the Yankees because they're my team. You would say, no, don't bet on the Yankees.
Correct.
Make this money, even though you're a Yankees fan. So
Correct.
you're so, what's the, I think the opposite of superstitious. You're so hard fact that you wouldn't even bet on your own team if you thought it wasn't a good bet.
Right. Well, there's a word kind of for not exactly that, but in the betting community,
right.
I'll call it, not exactly, called, being a contrarian bettor.
Okay.
So really taking the, what the public is expecting, taking what everybody's thinking and doing the opposite. There's a joke I make on the podcast all the time, and I say, listen, if there's a big game, Sunday Night Football, ask 10 of your friends what they're doing, what they're going to bet, and do the opposite. If there's a consensus among 10 of your friends on something for Sunday Night Football, do the opposite.
Really?
That's contrarian thought process. Now, not necessarily saying always do that, but that's a kind of thought process where the public, if everyone's betting a certain game, a certain price, a certain number, you're getting a level of inflation where there's value on the other side. So again, we're not saying that the Orioles are going to beat the Yankees every single time in that situation. But what we're saying is, okay, well, if the books are telling us that there's a 30% probability that the Orioles win that game, but our numbers suggest that there's actually a 50% probability that they win that game, we'll make that bet. And yes, we will lose it 5 out of 10 times. But since the price is higher, right, the price for the Orioles against the Yankees is going to be 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1. Something like that. You're getting value. That whereas you make that bet 5 times out of 10, 50% you win. Which is why another thing I talk about on the podcast all the time is don't track wins and losses. Track ROI, return on investment, because it doesn't matter. You can lose more than you win and still make money as long as the prices are suggesting that there's value and the prices are higher than that. Obviously 0% ROI.
Right. Okay. So essentially, let me just see if I can understand what you're saying, because I've never been.
There's a lot to throw out. That's why my voice cracked. There's a lot to throw out there. So
He's like, I don't know if this guy can handle it. No.
I can't even sometimes.
So you're saying essentially, even if the odds are going to be the same, if you have two teams, 50-50, right? You're going to want to go on the bigger return. Say you said 2.5 to 1, right?
Right.
So even if you're losing, you're still potentially.
Well, you
want winning in a way.
You want to make a good bet. You want to make a positive expected value bet. So that's the whole point of trying to teach. But this is why we have a podcast, really, to try and talk through this exercise of, well, again, stop putting it into such a perspective of I gotta win versus lose every single time, and I want to pick who's going to win and who's going to lose every single time. The point is that comes along with it, right? The winning and the making money kind of comes along with fundamental processes. And those processes are to say, okay, well, again, there's positive expected value in this game. So if I have a percent edge, I can eliminate the house, or at least try and understand the house edge, and use my edge to my advantage, and I will profit more than 50% of the time.
Jeez, man, it sounds like you got this figured out.
Well, see, you got to project that. Maybe
Right.
you don't, but realistically, I think, you got to track your wins and losses, and you can start to track, what you don't do well. Hockey's a sport that I don't do super well in, so I don't send a lot of hockey plays because, over the last 2 years, I've tracked the way I approach games, the way I bet, and my style doesn't exactly fit the way the hockey market has shaken out. So I don't really bet a lot of hockey.
Well, I wouldn't feel too bad about that too, because I don't mean to offend any hockey watchers that might be listening or watching to this watching this podcast. I'd say that hockey, obviously, out of the 4, I'm going to say major national sports,
right,
it's probably the least well. I want to say well known because people know about hockey, but I'd be willing to bet money on the fact that it doesn't receive that much airtime, or
Right.
not that it doesn't receive much airtime, but not a lot of people really watch as opposed to the old days. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's true, and that's reflective of the betting handle. The betting handle in hockey is much smaller than any other sport. Obviously, football being the biggest.
Right.
So that just means that there are the more bets at one time on a certain football game than there is, on the Stanley Cup. So the handle is much larger in football, baseball, basketball than hockey or soccer or tennis.
Right. Even on the Stanley Cup, it's not that big?
Not really, honestly. On any given, I'm not a bookmaker, but on any given Sunday, if you will, like on any random NFL game, the handle will be very, very large, just because everyone wants to bet football. That's what you think of when you think of betting sports.
Yeah, obviously. What would you say? Well, because you'd probably know better than most people would. What is the most? What's a sport you'd say with the biggest handle or the most? I guess by handle you mean. You can bet on a win. You can bet on, the
No,
spread.
I mean like the quantity of bets.
Oh, just bets in general.
Yeah.
I was talking more like, what's the sport with the most amount of? Oh, we're gonna see. For instance, like basketball, because I just watched Uncut Gems. You could bet on Paul Pierce making a three, or you know what I'm saying, the Clippers winning. You know what I'm saying, like something like that. What would you say which sport has the most outcomes or eventualities?
Right. So
which you could bet on.
Those are called prop bets.
Prop bets, yeah.
I would say football and basketball probably have the most, and football would be the most popular, most likely. A lot of people think of it with the Super Bowl. People go heavy on props because it's all concentrated on one game. There's only one thing to look at. So I want to look for different angles during the game. I don't want to just root for the Chiefs. I want to look at how long the national anthem's going to be and that kind of stuff. And it's crazy. So Uncut Gems, I actually haven't seen yet. But what I do know about that movie, I think it's based on the tip-off, right?
Yeah.
So you can't bet on that. Like, you cannot bet on the tip-off. That's like one
Who's
of the...
Who's going to win the tip-off?
Yeah, you can't.
Okay.
That's not a bet, which is funny because that's like the whole purpose of the movie, and that's something you can't do.
Who's going to get... I feel like that... Why not? I feel like that would be... you think about it, right? Like, fundamentally, it's a 50-50 split. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, but think of it this way. Books, sports books, they don't want that. And they don't want 50-50 shots. They want places where they can put house edge together. They want places where, they can get some money in the house, because at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, the house always wins.
that makes sense. Yeah, they got to be making money somehow. Speaking of big bets on the Super Bowl, my mother works at a...
Where's this going?
My mom's a loan shark, basically.
Okay.
No, so my mother, she did work at a rehabilitation center up near me, obviously. And, my mother's not at all a gambler. She doesn't like gambling at all. But even at her place, even at, women in their 50s and 60s, they'll bet on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's a very saturated market. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I like the aspect or the aesthetic of betting, but I was talking about this with someone earlier because I was telling I was having you on the show. I never got into betting, mostly because I don't have enough money to do it, but also because I'm not a risk taker like that.
Right.
I wouldn't be the guy to say, put it all on this, that, da-da-da-da. I went to a horse race one time with my dad. That's the only time I ever betted on a horse, and I actually came up pretty big. But besides that, nothing of the sort. I'm not, I'm just not that guy to take chances like that. I don't know if you ever, I was kind of going to ask you that too. Did you ever kind of foray into gambling? Because I know you advise people on how to gamble.
Oh, yeah, no, I bet as well. And then, I take every play that I send out. So it's not like I'm just, sending people, what to do and good luck.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Put your house on this and good luck. Not that that's not how I do it. I play everything. I'm basically showing my portfolio to people. So,
Okay.
it's not just straight bets. There's props, there's futures, there's all kinds of stuff in there. And again, I have it kind of sectioned out in the Discord. So I'm basically just opening up my sports betting portfolio to everybody and, being willing to talk about it, hear critique, but also, give advice about it because, over the last couple of years, it's a successful one. It's a profitable one.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's got to be like having the Infinity Gauntlet. Like you can just snap your fingers and it's money.
I wish.
You know what I
Because
mean?
there's ups and downs. It's a grind. People you see on Barstool, they'll post like a 10-team, $1,000 parlay and somebody nets like $25K and, great. But, that's not realistic. You know what I mean? That happens to people, sure. It happens sometimes, and everybody gets lucky. But in the long run, those types of bettors, those people that do that are not profitable.
Would you say there's been a bet that you've taken or you've made that has been like what's the craziest bet you'd say you've ever made?
Man, the craziest bet, like, I don't know.
The bet where you were kind of sweating it a little bit.
Okay.
Or maybe we could go categorically too. We can do the bet where you're sweating the most, maybe the bet where you put down the most money on it.
So yeah, well, that's a good
probably go together.
That's
honestly.
a good way to talk about it, actually, because we talk a lot about bankroll management. When people think betting, they think you're, like you mentioned, people are not risk takers. They don't like to, they don't like to put too much out there, and that's really another thing that we look to talk about on the podcast, which is why it's not just for sports bettors. It's really for people who want to look at sports a different way, because we're not sitting here saying, okay, put the house on this, big bet on that, not even using dollar amounts, really just to say that, you have a percentage for each play of a bigger bankroll, which you manage and you treat like a trading account. So it's really to make betting seem a lot more like trading stocks than it is actually picking winners and losers. So I won't really say like, I had a huge loss because, you have losing, and it depends on how you want to judge it. You can go by months and weeks and years. Overall, I have a winning method, a winning system, so I can't really say that. But there are weeks, where I've lost, multiple units, we like to call them.
Yeah.
So, because everyone bets a different amount. But the biggest thing for sports betting that people talk about, I think, is bad beats.
What's a bad beat?
Happen. Bad beats are like when everything's looking right and it just doesn't happen.
Takes a turn.
Yeah, I think so. I bet a lot of college basketball, and I bet like small conferences too. Like I'm not
like mid majors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a team which I hate forever. Actually, Iona, ironically, they've cost me a little bit. So no, but there's a team that I cannot stand for the rest of the time, and that is South Carolina Upstate. It's a strange name for a school, but I had a game where I took the under in that game, and the under was like good by 20 points, and in the last like minute and 17 seconds, I believe they scored like 18 or 19 points, and I lost. I've never lost something so incredible. Like I was golden for the whole game, and didn't even go to overtime. Within the last minute and a half, they scored something like 30 points, and that was
just garbage time points.
No, it was a close game, but like. It was garbage time. They tried to come back, South Carolina Upstate, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
They tried to come back in that game. I wish I could tell you off the top of my head the exact game because I'll never forget watching it, but that was brutal.
No, don't do it. Well, speaking of, college basketball, I'd assume that's a pretty risky sport to bet on, no? Because you have even if you get into like the March Madness where there's Cinderella stories and all that, is that the singular, in your personal opinion, the singular most risky sport to bet on, or which one would that be?
I don't think that's the most risky, but I would say that March Madness, from a sports fan perspective, is probably my favorite sporting event of all.
Okay.
Nothing beats March Madness to me. But no, I wouldn't say college. I would say that the reason that people would think college basketball is more risky is because they don't usually understand, how to value a point spread. You see Duke as a 18-point favorite against whoever, Wake Forest, let's say in the ACC, and you're like, oh, well, Duke's going to beat Wake Forest. But is Duke going to beat Wake Forest by 18 points? You don't know, and I think that for every given game, I don't necessarily have an edge. But again, like to the point about people not exactly, looking at it like that is you might hear, okay, can Duke win this game by 20 points against a no-name school? Wake Forest not a no-name school, but let's just say it wasn't a different one.
Right, Iona.
Yeah, if they played Iona in in non-conference, whatever, they'd probably be like a 35-point favorite.
Yeah.
So you would sit here and say, well, yeah, Duke can win by 40, sure, and you put the bet down. And they might, but realistically, do you know why? All you did was say, well, Duke is a good team, they should blow out Iona, and you take the bet. But there's a reason why that number is 35, and if you don't have an edge as to why you think 35 will be covered or not, you're only basing it off of that's a good team, they should cover it. That bet is going to lose, more often than not. And then again, another thing, when you have a spread, you also have a price. So a spread, and a standard basketball spread, has a minus 110 price and all, standard stuff. So that's 11 to 10, meaning you have to lay $110 to win 100. So if you do that and you go 50%, you lose money because you had to pay, which is the house edge every time, a little bit more than you would win. So if you go 50% in that market, you're going to lose money.
Interesting. So would you say that kind of makes it not the most risky, but up there, like probably more exciting, right? Too, because you were saying that it's definitely more treacherous, and even to watch. I mean, March Madness, the buzzer beaters, all the Cinderella stories. I'm sure the gambling aspect can be both the most stressful and probably the most exciting thing to gamble on, right?
Yeah, I would say probably college basketball, because of there's so many unknowns because of all the teams. You have over 100 teams, playing, and you're not going to know all those teams. You're not going to know what's going on with all those teams. So you got to look for alternate ways to kind of study games. You got to look for alternate ways to understand point spreads. You got to look for resources to understand those things. But if you're not doing that, you just want to bet Duke to win it all, you're going to lose money. And yeah, I think it is risky just because of how it plays out in the market. But if you think about it and you just don't do it, it's really, no, it's not any added risk than anything else. But the way that the public perceives it, the way that it happens, I mean, the same thing in the NBA. The Lakers play the Hornets. The Lakers are going to be a 12.5 point favorite, let's just say, in Charlotte. People say, yeah, the Lakers are going to blow them out, but they might not. And you don't have a specific edge that says whether they will or will not cover 12. So people gravitate towards those kinds of teams, those Dukes, the Lakers, the Yankees we talked about earlier. People gravitate towards those teams, and they throw money at it, and it's quite often a mistake, even if they do win.
So I know that Vegas, I hear all the time when I hear about betting, it's the Vegas odds. Is that the golden? Not to make a golden and Vegas joke here, but is that the golden standard for betting, or is it? Do you? I know you probably don't really, and I'll get your perspective on this in a second. That's the golden standard for betting, or is there other organizations out there? Because again, I have no idea about betting. I have very little knowledge about betting, I should say. But yeah, is that the go-to for gambling? And I know it's gambling in general, but also sports betting. Like
I think
I'm
definitely at its core, all this stuff comes from Vegas, just because legal sports betting obviously started in Vegas. But what I would say, well, legal sports betting on stuff that's not like horses and stuff like that. But what I would say is that people use the term Vegas lines just almost like a simplicity to say, rather than the gambling line. They just say the Vegas line. But as legalization grows across the country for multiple types of sports betting, there's in person, online, live betting. As legalization grows for those different types of things, like here in New York, we have 4 legal sports betting casinos, but we don't have legal online betting. So technically, you can't bet online like you can in Jersey, where you can literally hop over the bridge and do whatever you want. But sorry, Jersey, but no. But what I'm saying is that each outlet, each sports betting, each sports book, they create their own lines. They create their own lines based upon, the market and obviously their own numbers. So there is no, like Vegas is really meaning like a consensus between the top outlets in Vegas. But again, as legalization grows, there's FanDuel and DraftKings and these kinds of places, and these are becoming the top outlets of the East Coast. So, the betting line is often equated to the Vegas line. Okay.
All right. And would you be more, let's just say, preordained or more apt to trust the Vegas line, or how do you usually operate with that? Do you because I'm sure by the way that you come off to me, it seems like you got something that could put Vegas under in coming years here. I don't mean to be dramatic, but it seems like that you might know something that these guys don't. In terms of like betting or taking smart bets.
Yeah, I think it's really it's who gives you the best line. So another thing that we talk about on the podcast, and I've tried to write some articles about as well, is really just to say, look across the lines, look across the market. If somebody in Vegas, obviously with online betting, you're only betting in your jurisdiction. So if you're not in Nevada, you don't have access to Las Vegas lines. You know, the way that the betting landscape is now. If you're in New York, you can only bet at the casinos in New York. If you're in Jersey, you can only bet at the different outlets in Jersey. So you can't really use that in any way. But my point being that, you know, let's say DraftKings has -4 for a team, yet FanDuel's got -3.5. If you like the favorite, you want the 3.5. You don't want the 4. So it's really not to say that any line is more important than the other. It's just what's best for your bet. Once you figure out where your edge is based on, you know, whether you're coming up with your own line, whether you're just looking across the market and figuring out who has the best line, that's where you're going. You don't really care who put it out. You're really just looking for, based upon your numbers, what book are you going to beat?
Right. Okay. Well, I just want to switch gears too for a second here. We'll get to basketball in a little bit because, you know what, I completely forgot. I run a basketball podcast. I don't run the Joe Rogan Experience, though. You are. I mean, listen, this has been very interesting, very eye-opening. I just want to real quick get this out of the way because it's been something I've been itching to ask. Do you have someone or a crazy story in where someone got like you gave someone a pick or you advised someone in a certain way and they got really super pissed at you, or was that never really happened or materialized? Because I personally, I mean, I'm not you, but I watch a great deal of UFC, and so I've told people where to put their money, and the next day I'll get an angry text being like, you know what I mean, like
right.
no. But I was just wondering, has it ever happened to you in any capacity?
Yeah, I mean that happens, and obviously, you know, we run a group where I don't know all the members personally,
right? Yeah,
and
true.
I got friends that'll text me. You know, they're probably a little meaner because they do know me. But yeah, that happens, and I think that, you know, again, that's why we really want to push it as a holistic experience where you're talking through games, you're looking at it, and you're understanding how to build a bankroll. Like, I never over leverage myself where, you know, I can't pay my losses, let's just say, or I'm in trouble because I bet too much. That doesn't happen to me.
No, you seem too smart for that.
Well, it's not even that. It's discipline. It's really, I appreciate it, but it's discipline, and I think that, like, that's what we're looking to teach people. And yeah, if you don't have discipline coming in and you really, you know, you want to be a hot shot bettor, and, you know, if I send out 3 plays and we go 2-1, but you parlayed them, you might lose, but I'll make money and you're gonna lose. So, you know, I think that's tough. But again, like, what I would always say is I bet everything too. So if I lose 10 games in a row, which is a rare occurrence but can happen, I just lost 10 games in a row too. So whatever you put down, if you're like, holy shit, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it, man.
If you're like, holy shit, you know, I can't believe we just, you know, we lost 10 in a row. You know, I'm down, whatever. I'm down too.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a human aspect that, you know, we try and have an understanding about. But I wouldn't say there's any specific instances where I had to, like, you know, defend my integrity against anyone. But I think definitely, you know, having the community that understands how we do things and how it's a grind definitely helps, where, you know, you try and just talk to people and understand, you know, what they're looking for, and again, teach them. You know, it's almost like teachable moments, but you don't want it to happen when you lose money.
Yeah.
But no, there's no specific instances of anything like that.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, you have that great safeguard. It's like, hey, if someone comes up to you, yeah, man, I just lost the parlay on your picks. You're like, yeah, no, I lost too. And it's almost like, oh, all right, well, I can't really be mad at you because you're taking the same picks that I am. You know what I mean? It's a great little safeguard.
Or if you go with that example, if I say, you know, well, you're like, oh, I lost on your picks today because I parlayed. I'm like, well, I didn't tell you to do that. You know,
that's
what I mean?
true too. Yeah, so, I just gave you the information. I gave you the keys. You unlocked the door, essentially.
Pretty much. Like, I'm very, you know, again, it's almost like I said before, it's just looking up at my, you know, at my book, my whole, you know, what I'm looking at every day, and really understanding, you know, what I'm doing with my money. And I'm telling people what I'm doing with my money specifically, not just to say, like, you know, on the podcast, obviously we talk about games. We say, okay, you know, in the World Series, you know, what we think, and that's very different than, like, specific picks that we put our money on. And we always make sure we differentiate between that. So if people listen to things, you know, it's the same thing as listening to something on ESPN and thinking you have an edge. And I think that definitely there's a distinction there. But with the official picks that we always send out, and we make sure everybody understands, you know, we put money on that too. So
right. Okay. Well, listen, with the last around 30 minutes here, I figure we should talk some basketball.
Absolutely.
So I know you're a Yankees guy. What's your team for the NBA? And I guess we could talk. We could say your college team, though. We kind of cover more NBA hoops on here, but feel free if you want to tell us your college team as well.
So my NBA team is the Brooklyn Nets.
Really?
Yeah. So I grew up in Queens, but I just, you know, everyone's a Knick fan in New York, and
Okay.
I always liked the Nets. I liked Jason Kidd growing up, and then there were rumblings that the Nets were going to come to Brooklyn and sign Dwight Howard. And I was like, this is it. This is it. We're good. I can come out of, my Nets hiding. This is it. So they come to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We don't get Dwight Howard. We get Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett for our entire future.
Was that around the time where was it Vlade Divac or something like that? He was running the not Vlade Divac. It was the Russian general manager, right?
Yeah. He's the owner.
Oh, he's the owner. Excuse me.
That's when Jay-Z bought a bigger minority stake in the Nets. So he was all up in, and stuff like that. We had Joe Johnson.
Yep.
Man, those were the times. We had Brooke Lopez as like the best post player in the league after Dwight Howard. Not on defense, only on offense. But that was it's been rough. It's been a sad experience. But
you guys, I feel like you guys will come up next year. I do also. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I kind of want to. I want everyone to pump the brakes on this Nets team, and I'm going to say this with full respect to you as a Nets fan.
No, please don't, because their decision making at times does not deserve your respect.
Well, you guys are not the Knicks. We're talking about bad decision making. The Knicks are up there, but no, I think having, and let me know if you agree with this, because again, you are the Nets aficionado currently in the room. I'd say that having two personalities like KD and Kyrie can either be kind of like the Cleveland Browns when they first assembled that squad with OBJ, you know what I'm saying, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
It can either go great or really, really badly. You know what I mean? And especially considering I like it's not Jason Kidd. It's who's at the head coaching helm?
Steve Nash.
Steve Nash, excuse me. Always get them two confused. People would know if they listen. I don't mind the hire. I think he was a great point guard in his time. I think he knows how to run an offense. It should be fine, but it kind of seems to me, especially with recent comments, like KD and Kyrie will be running that team. So that, to me, is the only... And I think the Nets, besides that, are a pretty talented team, or they will be next year. That's the only thing that gives me pause, though.
I'm not too worried about that. I forget the name of our... Oh, Jacques Vaughn is the assistant coach. People were actually pointing towards him to be the head coach. He's retained. He's the highest paid assistant coach in the league. So he's, basically the de facto head coach as Steve Nash kind of, fills the role of the face of the franchise, if you will, from the coaching perspective. He'll be at the media days and stuff like that, where I do think that Jacques Vaughn will be, really responsible for running plays, but also working with player personalities. And he's a respected guy. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think This is the problem. I think Kyrie is the problem. I don't think Kyrie. I think Kyrie wants to be LeBron so bad at certain times where he wants to be the star of the show. He wants to be the hero in all the moments, and he wants people to respect him, which are all fair points. But I do think that he's taken it another step forward where he's like, I don't see us having a head coach. It's like, relax, buddy. Yeah, it's LeBron. He wants to be LeBron. And listen, don't get me wrong. I mean, LeBron is as good a role model for anybody ever. Yeah. But realistically, I have a really big concern with Kyrie Irving. I would have liked to have seen us try and develop the core with Spencer Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell. Obviously, when you get a chance to sign KD, you signed KD, but I would have been much happier with a KD-Jimmy Butler pairing than I would have been, with Kyrie Irving. No disrespect to the man.
Well, you are newly initiated to this podcast. This is essentially a Kyrie slander podcast. So,
that's great.
Have a field day.
Oh, that's great.
And listen, if we ever get big enough to where we can get NBA guys on the show, well, I'm sure we're never getting Kyrie because, even if he's like, I'll come on the show, he just looks at like any one of the episodes in the backlog. He's never mind. But yes, this is officially kind of in a way, a Kyrie slander podcast. So feel free to, even though it's your team, let him have it. Because I agree with you, man. I think he's kind of like he sinks franchises. Like, you know what I mean? He thinks
the earth is flat.
He thinks the earth is flat. He's
wild. What are you going to do with that?
I don't know, man. Listen, he's terrific. He's a terrific player. I will always say this about Kyrie. I think he's terrific. Like you said, though, I think he just lets his headstrong mentality get in the way. That's the one thing I don't like about him. I think that, like you said, he wants to be LeBron a lot, and it's something that my co-host brought up on past shows, which I think is a very apt point, is that he sees all the comparisons to LeBron, and there was that question where it says, "Do you view LeBron as a father figure?"
Yeah.
That really got under his skin.
Absolutely. I mean, that would get under anyone's skin.
Anyone's reasonable, but with someone like an ego like Kyrie has, I can only imagine what that did. I just think he needs to get his ego in check, because that was the one thing that happened with Boston. And hot take, I mean, I'd rather have Kemba Walker, and you kind of see how it's gone. Kemba Walker, you put him in Boston, they're better than they were with Kyrie. But yeah, I think it's just his ego that he needs to get under wraps.
I think that combined with the fact that he can't stay healthy.
That's true too.
There's a conventional wisdom that says if you get hurt in college, you're going to get hurt in the NBA. And that's a big thing with, we've seen it with Anthony Davis, has a real hard time staying healthy. If you have a major injury in college or multiple major injuries in college.
Too.
Well, so Zion didn't necessarily have a major injury. He kind of had, a freak accident. So hopefully that's not the case, but obviously looking at his body type, you start to wonder when that might fall apart. But
yeah.
We wish him the best. But no, but my point about Kyrie is really to say, like, he can't stay healthy, and he has this ego problem, which is why, they label, this is overused, but they call it locker room cancer, where
that's what we've called him.
He's not on the floor. He's critiquing, your organization, and you got to pay him $30 million to do that. I mean, why would you do that? I'll pay Kemba Walker $25 to not do that.
Here's the thing, to do literally the opposite of that.
Right.
Kemba
Walker is smaller and probably less athletic and less talented than Kyrie Irving, yet somehow plays better defense than Kyrie Irving,
and
which is insane.
A 100% better locker room presence.
Absolutely. I think Boston obviously has had its issues. So I took a little wager on Boston to win the chip, actually.
Okay, I wouldn't blame you, because me and Nigel kind of thought the same thing.
Yeah, no, but that kind of fell apart, obviously, and with the Heat, a great story as well. But
fantastic.
But yeah, I think Boston has their own issue. That kind of that core and that culture is something that the Nets really want to build. Something that I think Sean Marks was doing a good job of doing. And I mean, you got a guy in D'Angelo Russell who you would think is a locker room cancer, hotshot kid. Nick Young is Iggy Azalea, whole nonsense that happened over there.
Yeah,
he comes to the Nets. He has fun. They celebrate. They bench him. You know what I mean? And he's fine. He's upset, obviously, that he doesn't want to be on the bench, but they benched him. They pulled him in crunch time for Spencer Dinwiddie a couple of years ago. This all happened, and D'Angelo Russell responded to that by having probably the best season of his career the next year.
Yeah.
They built this culture up. They garnered, a good culture in Brooklyn, and I think that Sean Marks was doing a good job. And you add Kyrie Irving and you add Kevin Durant, and you can't say your team got worse, right? No one in their right mind would say that. But at the same time, it's like,
did it?
It's almost counterintuitive to everything that you were working towards.
Right.
But maybe you were just working towards, a fourth seed in the East, and you're not going to get anything from it. I get it. I get why you got to shoot. You got to go for broke in the NBA, because if you don't have a super team, you can't win a championship. We've seen that, unless you have a Superman in LeBron.
That's what I'm saying.
If you don't have a LeBron, you need a super team.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I'm a little bit disappointed just because I really thought that the way the franchise was moving was something I would be a little bit happier to watch, at least.
I'd say and touching on what you said about super teams, I'd say in some certain cases too, you need a super team with a bench now.
Right.
Especially with next year the Golden State Warriors coming back, you're going to need. I mean, teams are going to need firepower.
Absolutely, I think you're going to need veterans and rookie guys on their rookie deals, because you're not going to have the cap space to sign 3 guys for $120 million, and then also have your traditional 6-man that makes whatever a year. I think you're going to have guys that you can trust on their rookie deals. And you're going to have guys that you can trust who are willing to play for a LeBron on the vet minimum, knowing that they have let's say a 2-to-1 shot to win a ring every single year.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I could say certainly, about the NBA is that it's become such a great, in my personal opinion, a great league. So me and Nigel, we started this podcast right at the beginning of the season. Perfect timing, right? Mm-hmm. So we got all the highs, all the lows, coronavirus coming in of this league. We got the fantastic, in my personal opinion, great finish, of the Miami Heat, the underdogs, something, a team that nobody thought could make it, taking the Lakers to 6. just a Cinderella story, right?
Yeah.
We got all of that, and we're ready. Of course, we're ready for next year, but it's become, and because like of what you said and what we're talking about with the super teams, it feels like everyone's got that go-to guy now.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe under that precipice of super team. There's at least off the top of my head 5-6 teams that could be considered right under that precipice in my personal opinion. I mean, it's become such a great league, man.
Well, see, I actually think not the opposite, but I actually, on the contrary a little bit, I think the quality of play in the NBA has seriously deteriorated. I think over the years, the quality of play in the NBA has been going down. I mean, I hate there's nothing I hate more than seeing 150 to 145 score, because it's not because the players are better. I mean, obviously they are. They're bigger, faster, stronger as we've gone through the years. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a lack of defense. Because,
think so?
Yeah, it's crazy because you look at a regular season game, and it's 150 to 145, and you look at the final score of Game 6, what was it, 93 to 86 or something, or 103 to 90. It's ridiculous that you have such differential in how many points are scored, yet in the playoffs, it's like they're actually playing defense. The refs are actually letting them play a little bit more. And I think that my problem, especially with this year, is that in the bubble, when they first came back, you were seeing crazy scores. And
I was going to say, man.
Yeah, in the first, second rounds of the playoffs. I mean, that Dallas game, Dallas and the Clippers, that's like 120, 100 ridiculous scores where they're both really just shooting, and there's really no defense being played.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting thought, because I personally, I think that every team now, if you're talking about the Luka game winner, was that game, or am I thinking of a different game? Probably of a different game.
I think there were multiple games that were really high scoring, but that one, I know that one was in the 130s. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know, but you could be right about that. You think it would be that they just don't. Because I know, like, the whole stigma about LeBron is that he doesn't try until, the playoffs are the last, because he knows he can turn it on and turn it off whenever he wishes. Do you think it's something more like that? Because I know a lot of solid defensive players, like Malcolm Brogdon comes to mind, Jimmy Butler comes to mind, Kawhi, he didn't play the best during the playoffs, but he's always been a solid defensive anchor. Again, another one, Paul George, didn't play well at all during the playoffs, but, there's plenty of guys that are solid defensively. Are you saying it's some kind of something along the lines of the All-Star game where they don't start playing until the fourth quarter? Is that
absolutely true? I think that the games they don't look like they should, because at the end of the day, my problem is this: if the scores in the regular season, like whatever, I wish I had the stat for you, but let's just say the average score of a regular season game is so much higher than the average score of a playoff or a finals game, and really, I don't believe that that's because the best players are in the final game. I don't think the score differential really. I don't think that should equate. And definitely, you could make the argument that the refereeing is different. Obviously, they let more happen, but I think the disparity is really high. So I can't believe that it's solely just because the refs are letting them play to a higher extent.
Could be, man. That's definitely something that's interesting. I always find myself getting into these conversations in the pod where it's like, that's actually a great nugget of information. Like, I got to go and look that up later, because, I think at surface value, one could say that the offense in the NBA has gotten so much better in its own right. So I feel like from what we're both saying, it could be a double-edged blade where you have guys like, again, LeBron that turns it on when he wants, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, the pairing of him and Murray. Like, you have so many more, let's just say, dynamic duos, But again, you could make the argument there that a lot of the marquee, stars were out for this season.
Right.
Steph was out, Clay was out.
That's true.
Who else? Who else was injured this?
DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
You can't call him a star anymore.
But
obviously KD and Kyrie. Missing most of the season. But going back to what you originally said about a lot of you think there's a lot more people that can put up more points. I think that's much more of a symptom of just poor regular season play. And I point to a guy like Andrew Wiggins all the time. Andrew Wiggins is capable of putting up 25 points a night, absolutely. But he is incredibly inefficient. He still can't really shoot. And he doesn't get to the line at a good rate for his size. And he came into the league with everyone being, expecting him to be a plus defender, and he hasn't been. He's a negative defender. I'm curious if he ever could make the playoffs, if that would change. But again, that's my point about a guy like Andrew Wiggins, who is really, a mid-tier player. He's not that great, but he gets paid a ton of money because he's the highest scoring player on that team, or before he got traded.
Might be more about the Timberwolves than anything,
Yes, that's true as well. But yeah, if he scored 25 points per game, nobody would be surprised. But I feel like I'm going in circles, but it's almost like, we talk about Russell Westbrook's.
You're good, dude. I do it all the time. I'm like
Russell Westbrook's, triple-double feat, averaging a triple-double. In yesteryear, that would be the most amazing thing ever. But, in 2020 and 2019, when he actually did it in 2018, I believe, it's almost like I don't care. You average 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. I don't care. Watch those games. Steven Adams is not even going for the ball because he knows you can get defensive rebounds. You don't pass the ball until you have somebody wide open, and your team doesn't win. You win in the regular season because you're that much more talented than other people, sure. And in the playoffs, the guy can't perform. And when he was on the Rockets, they almost had to pull him out. At the end of games, they had a serious question of whether Russell Westbrook should be closing games or not. Now, obviously, I think that's partly because he doesn't really fit well with that roster. But again, this is my point. You got a guy averaging a triple-double, which is amazing. But triple-doubles are normal now. It's not a crazy thing. When you got a guy with 7 rebounds and 20 points, this team just is like, okay, it's time for him to get a triple-double, I guess.
So you think everyone kind of just puts more emphasis on offense is essentially what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think definitely there, and I think obviously the way that the game is played now is different than
too.
in the 80s. I'm not
faster,
saying
faster 3D.
I'm not sitting here saying I was watching it, Larry Bird saying, "Oh man, I miss those days." I mean, obviously,
back in my day.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying, but I do think that even in the last 6 or 7 years, you're seeing a certain deterioration of level of play, and when the finals come around, it gets heightened again. You see LeBron, do his thing, and it's absolutely, some of the best television there is. But I think getting there is tough nowadays. It's tough to watch to get there nowadays.
It's interesting too because I think it's important to mention the fact that again that you said the game has shifted. So I think also the shoot up in offensive statistics, let's just say, could be due to the fact that it's a faster game.
Right.
Might be even a little bit of a smaller game, let's just say. I know some teams this year, like the Knicks and the Lakers, were kind of experimenting a little bit with bully ball, taking it back, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, it's a 3 and I want to say, let's just say a 3-ball type of game now. That could play something into it.
Absolutely.
But I definitely think what you're saying, again, is interesting, and it deserves a deeper look because, yeah, a lot of teams could be, like, for instance, even thinking back to the bubble, Harden lost a playoff game. It's like, do these guys really care all that much? Or could it be like a Russell Westbrook thing where it's like, just pat my stats. Harden went immediately after a playoff loss and went to a ribs place and was just like eating there and just having fun. You know what I mean? Like, I
think the bubble is tough. I think it's really, like, this is what I said about the, Major League Baseball season this year. Like, there's a lot of storylines, there's a lot of stats, and honestly, I don't want to take too much from it at all. I think that definitely we learned some things about some players in basketball. We learned some things about some teams. We learned that the Miami Heat have a great core and a great franchise and a great organization.
Right.
But, deeper than that, there's not much that I want to take away from this because it was so different than we've ever experienced. What we asked these guys to do in order to make everybody money and to make everybody happy was pretty incredible. And I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. We don't have to talk about it, but the fact that went on was pretty incredible. So I think that I don't really want to take too much out of it because you really just don't know where those players' heads were at. And I think that part of what we do as people that talk about sports, people who bet on sports, is try and quantify what players are going to do. And if players are, we can't trust that their head's always in the game, meaning we can't trust that they're going to perform up to the standard that we were expecting.
Right.
So that's with the whole bubble situation, I just feel like it's a difficult comparison to make because a guy like Paul George.
I was just about to say, man, like
pandemic
people give him shit for no reason. Not for no reason, but for a guy like you said in the bubble that's having mental issues, and then people go on pandemic P. Let's not forget that Paul George on the Pacers, even on OKC, even in the regular season with the Clippers, from the best of my memory, I could be remembering incorrectly, was pretty cash money.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
Let's not pretend like he's not a great player in his own regard, or even Danny Green. Like, people discount the fact that he had with the Raptors, with the San Antonio Spurs. He was great for them.
Right.
Like, let's not discount that.
Right. So I and again, like, I almost want to take it to the other side too. Is I don't want to assume that certain players had mental things
Right.
going on because of the. And I don't want to assume anything because it's so under wraps in the bubble. There's so much going on that I don't want to take too much. I really want to watch the beginning of next season and see how these teams respond. I want to see how they handle the draft and obviously and how they're going to be able to get these players kind of used to their systems and stuff like that. Obviously, with the virus kind of having a resurgence, it'll be pretty interesting to see what the league's protocol is like. But I really don't want to take too much out of it because again, that's a great point about Paul George, where he's a top 20 player, no doubt about it, but didn't perform like it, didn't perform in the biggest moments. But him, I view differently than Russell Westbrook because I do think that Russell Westbrook is not a guy that I want on my team.
Yeah, no, and I'm an OKC fan, not the guy I want.
Oh, that's okay. So you think you're going to hold on to Chris Paul or he's out the door?
I feel like he might be out the door. I know he's getting older. In a perfect world, you hold on to him and we get rid of some of our older pieces, and we try to go at it again. I think there's no reason after what we did this year why we couldn't at least make it into the playoffs again next year.
Yeah.
But being a Chris Paul fan, and I always have been, and I was always very vocal when he came to OKC in the first place that he'd be great, and a lot of people didn't believe me. Seeing him strictly as a fan, as a basketball fan, not as an Oklahoma City fan, I'd say, Chris Paul, go where you can get one. Go where you can get a ring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd be happy for him if he went to the Lakers. It might be a little bit of a cheat code at that point, but I'd be happy for him. In a perfect world, though, I'd want him to stay here, but I think he's getting out of there.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a too good, too quick. They weren't expecting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to be this good.
Yeah.
Dennis Schroeder in the 6-man role. I mean, they played 3-guard lineups all the time, but just that concept of him coming off the bench and being, not being asked to facilitate as much as he had to with the Hawks. I mean, that was a great role for him.
Yeah.
Steven Adams is obviously who he is, and
He's solid.
and when Danilo Gallinari can stay healthy,
20
we have a
points
little
a night.
Paisan pride over here. But if he can stay healthy, I mean, he's a good player.
He's a great player, and also what's guy's name? I can't believe this. He showed up big, though he got blocked by Harden in the last play of the game.
Is that Lorenzo Dort?
Yeah, Lugens Dort, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, Lugens Dort. I apologize. I got to put some respect on his name, but Lugens Dort, great player as well. I think he'll emerge. He'll come up big, especially because I feel like he might get more playing time with the way he performed, and it could just be again because of the bubble effect. But at this point, you're OKC. You're young.
Right.
First off, you have a ton of draft picks in the future. You could play around.
Yeah, you got a lot.
You overexceeded expectations this year. Why not just play around a little bit?
And you got a guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who's willing and able to guard small forwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look up. I think, enjoy the Chris Paul year, but I do think he's going to be moving on.
He'll pack up. I think also another interesting place for him to go would be the Bucks.
Yeah, I could see that. I do think that they'll have to move a lot in order to be able to afford him. So Bledsoe's obviously got to go.
Yeah.
And listen, say what you will about Bledsoe, they don't win without him.
No, they don't.
Really don't.
Bledsoe's a great piece, which is why I think they could get a lot of value for him.
I don't know who's going to be willing to pay the price for Bledsoe.
I don't know his contract. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He's got a hefty contract.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. It's not those supermax that we're talking about, but. I think I wish I could tell you off the top of my head, but I think we're looking at least 17, 18 million kind of deal.
That's probably one of the pitfalls, right? If you're a team like the Bucks, where you assemble this team and it's all so delicately put together, you're like making one movement or paying. You know what I'm saying? Getting rid of someone, making space could be the end.
Well, I think you look at the Bucks and you say, okay, this perfect regular season team doesn't win in the playoffs.
That's true too. Yeah, that's why would they want to.
So it's almost like, you know what? Maybe you sacrifice a seed in the East, but perhaps you can actually have a team that's better built for the playoffs.
Yeah,
because that's what you got to do nowadays. You got to build for the playoffs. Look at the Miami Heat. Nothing about the Miami Heat regular season said that they were going to win the Eastern Conference Championship. Nothing.
No.
And listen, they tried. They had Kendrick Nunn running the point all year, Rookie of the Year candidate, and at the end, in the playoffs, he barely played. Because they had something going. They played with 7 guys in the playoffs. That's just you have to gear towards playoff basketball. So it's again, it goes more into the fact that the regular season is not as good as it could be because it almost doesn't matter. You look at Giannis and they have 62 wins in a season, but who cares? You know, if they win all those games, I don't really care. If I'm going to see Giannis get bounced first, second round, what do I care how good they were in the regular season?
That is a very fair point, too. No. I'm just saying logistically, like, you know what I'm saying, with the moving parts, like, to your point, you know, it might be a little bit tricky with the system that you have set up. But, yeah, no, I think that Chris Paul is overall, like, in terms of leadership, too, I think he's a great guy for the playoffs.
Right. I mean, he's the president of the Players Association. I mean, he's a guy you want around. Definitely, I'm sure, a guy that Giannis would want around because, you know, what I really do respect about Giannis, even though I don't think, you know, he's the second coming of Jesus, like a lot of people say.
I don't think he is either.
Giannis is a guy that likes to be challenged. Giannis, you know, he's had things that he said where he doesn't love working out with guys over the offseason because he doesn't want to be too chummy. You know, he's almost like a little like Kobe mentality where he wants to get at you, and I like that. And I think Chris Paul is that kind of guy too. Even though Chris Paul is very willing to teach and talk with younger players, but especially with, you know, a teammate like Giannis, I think Chris Paul will really, you know, teach Giannis how to be a leader, how to be a good player. Obviously, not that he's not already, but I think Chris Paul would be really good for Giannis. But you can make that argument about any young player. Chris Paul would be great for anyone that can handle him because he's had problems where, you know, in the Clippers people said he was mean pretty much.
He was abrasive, yeah.
Yeah, but that's his style. That's that mentality and that's why he's a winner. Obviously, he hasn't won a championship yet, but he's a winner.
Yeah, no, in theory, he's a winner. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, listen, with the last kind of, let's say 10 minutes here, I want your personal picks, and I don't mean in the betting way. I mean, this is kind of a rite of passage now.
Okay.
We make guests on the show give us their picks for both the Eastern and the Western Conference, the way too early picks.
Okay. I'm gonna take a look.
You know, go for it.
I'm gonna take a look over here at those standings from last year. So, am I picking who's gonna win the regular season, or am I picking who's gonna win the conferences?
Coming out of the conferences.
Okay.
I'll make it easy for you.
All right. So I gotta go back to the Celtics for the East. Just because I think that, you know, the 76ers are going to have some issues.
Yeah.
I think people have seen that their roster makeup is not happening. You know, the Al Horford, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons combination is not happening. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to trade any of those pieces, what they're going to do.
They're kind of in limbo now.
Yeah, well, they have Daryl Morey running the team.
Very
I think,
very odd scheme fit. You know?
It'll be interesting. So I don't see them making any more noise. I don't think the Bucks have shown at any point in time that they're able to get out of the second round of the playoffs too easily. Obviously they were against the Raptors. They were in the conference finals, but I don't think that they're a team that really scares me too much, even though they do match up against Boston better than other teams. You look at the Raptors in the East. I think Boston beats the Raptors next time they play. I really do. I don't think the Raptors, I don't think Pascal Siakam is that great. I do think he's a good player, but again, I don't think he's one of those guys that are built for playoff basketball. Kyle Lowry's the bulldog. Obviously, he's going to show up, but they need some serious improvements to that roster with Ibaka and Gasol aging.
Yeah.
OG Anunoby is a good player. If Terrence Davis gets his legal situation set up, he'll be a good player as well. But yeah, I think they're a problem, and yeah, I don't think the Pacers or the Magic I'm sorry, I don't think the Nets are going to be able to get there. I think that the Celtics are the pick to come out of the East.
I agree. I tend to agree, yes.
And
especially if they get better this offseason, which they can only get better,
And listen, I think the West is tough because
Wild West.
We should see the Lakers and the Clippers again because nothing tells me that the Lakers won't at least get better from where they're all right now. And again, they have a LeBron, and the Clippers have shown they need to make some changes to that roster. But at its core, as long as you have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you perhaps have the number 2 or 3 best player in the league in Kawhi.
I think you hold on to Montrezl Harrell as well.
Yeah. I think that he's had some issues in the playoffs where he's exposed a little bit of his limitations, but not something that we didn't know. I'm curious to see the type of moves that both of them make.
Yeah.
So Okay, so I guess what I would say is that because I don't know what their rosters are gonna look like before the start of the new year, which is coming really soon.
December 22nd, yeah.
Yeah. So wait, do they even have an off season?
They got roughly about a month.
Yeah.
So LeBron wasn't happy about that either, but we can.
I would have to go back to the Lakers because
yeah.
nothing about the bubble situation for the Clippers has shown me that they're going to be able to beat a LeBron team. And, obviously, again, I said I don't want to take too much out of the bubble, so hopefully the Clippers, when they're in a better situation, are not going to perform like that. They can perform better, but, yeah, I got to go back to the Lakers. I would say Lakers and Celtics would come out of the East, the West and the East, respectively.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I tend to agree. I'm trying to think of any other teams in the West that might make some noise. You got Dallas. They could potentially make some, but again, I feel like it would be the same eventuality as last year or this year, I should say. Excuse me.
It's really you look up and down and you say, okay, well, who's going to stop Anthony Davis?
Yeah.
And who's going to stop LeBron?
Maybe the Nuggets. I could see that, but that's a big if. Really big if.
That's a big if. I do think, and I think they're going to lose Jeremy Grant. I think he's going to go somewhere and get some money. Yeah, listen, Jamal Murray's a big shot guy. He's going to make shots, and they were pretty banged up. They didn't have Will Barton. They didn't have Gary Harris the entire playoffs. So there's definitely something going on there. But Nikola Jokic, he's not going to guard Anthony Davis. He can't. He's
not 100% of the time.
No, and nobody on that team can guard LeBron. Even though LeBron's, I don't know, what's going to be 36 or something.
LeBron's a freak of nature, man.
Nobody can stop him.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm at a loss for every time I try to describe LeBron. Anomaly.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think until LeBron is gone, teams like the Nuggets or the Jazz they're really not going to be able to make a lot of noise.
That's a testament to the Lakers too, because those are very good teams. Those are teams that are in the East that if they were in the East, could probably challenge for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh, absolutely. Opinion. If the Nuggets were in the East, I'd give it to them.
Yeah, so it's wild, just like the West, the Western Conference. So you have Celtics, Lakers.
Without
on
the spot, yes, that's what I got right now.
That's what we love to do on this podcast. We love to combine the analysis of ESPN with the banner of two guys just talking on a couch. So, I tend to agree.
Yeah, I think that's where I go. I mean, obviously, the East is pretty volatile, and yeah, obviously we can revisit that when we learn what these teams are going to look like a little bit better. But I would say the Celtics still beat all those teams.
That's true. Also, free agency. We don't know what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, who's going to get Bradley Beal? That's going to be a big the Wizards are not making the playoffs. I know that.
Yeah, well, unless John Wall gets back and John Wall's been looking good. I don't want to be too speculative, excuse me. But as long as John Wall gets back healthy and he plays as well as he said he can, I don't know, Bradley Beal might stay there, man. I know Bradley Beal really likes John Wall at the helm, but that again, it's a bunch of ifs.
They had a lot of issues when they first came into the league. They did not like each other for a number of years. I hope their relationship is better nowadays, but I thought they always had problems.
They might have when they first. I know I read a lot of stuff, a lot of reports that Bradley Beal had said that if John Wall comes back, they're going to be a very scary team. Because obviously both of those men are buckets.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Wizards after those two guys are god awful.
Except for like Rui Hachimura.
Yeah,
that's pretty much. I mean, but he's got promise. I think he was on the All NBA or All Rookie third team. Could be wrong.
I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if is there an All Rookie third team.
There might not be. I might be talking on my ass. Hold on one second.
No, I do think Rui Hachimura from Gonzaga, right? Yeah, I think he's talented. I think he can shoot a little bit, but he doesn't have a consistent 3-pointer. So that's going to be a problem, and he's not a great defender. So he's a stretch four that if he's not utilized correctly is basically going to be Mo Wagner. So
yeah, let me just check here because I always have to feel like I have to check myself. Okay, so we got second team. Excuse me, not third team. I was thinking of the actual NBA teams, like the All NBA teams.
Right.
He got second team. I think he shows promise, but you're right. It's It's the Wizards.
Yeah,
you know?
listen, up and down that roster, there's just not a lot of talent.
It's not, no.
And, John Wall and Bradley Beal, that's a great duo. That's 50 points a game right there. But, I don't think they're going to, I don't even think that beats the Hawks.
Yeah, it could be. You could be correct. Well, with that has been our hour and 10 minutes. And I want to thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, for taking the drive down. I personally had fun with this show. We'll have I'm definitely gonna try to get you back on the show sometime for sure. But yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And when the season kicks off, we can run it back and maybe give out some picks. We'll talk a little bit about what to look for during the season. And we're always live with what's going on. So
that's what I was gonna say, man. Once Nigel gets back, I was gonna have you give some picks today on the pod, but I figured better to have my co-host with me here so we could be more as a cohesive unit. But yeah, man, I had fun with it. You're definitely welcome on whenever you'd like. Is there anything you want to plug real quick before we finish it off here?
Yeah, just again, like we talked about at the top of the hour, the Discord group that we're running, guys, it's a great community. It's for bettors. It's for people who want to learn how to bet. I mean, it's for people who want to watch sports and talk with their friends as they do it. So again, you can head to thenoisemedia.com/newsletter. That gets you access to our newsletter where we'll send you the link to join our Discord group, get a couple weekly updates, new articles sent straight to your inbox. And again, once you're in that Discord group, engage with the community and picks sent literally to your phone, to your computer when you need them. Exactly, you got someone to talk to about them. So definitely I would say to join that up.
I can attest, man. The website's looking clean. So like I said, go give his stuff a visit. And yeah, with that, that's been the episode. So this has been what? Episode 24? Yep. Episode 24 of Spreading the Floor with Max Gilson. Guys, we'll see you in the next one. We will have my co-host Nigel back. I promise he is doing well right now. He texted me earlier. He's doing good. And we'll see you in the next edition. We don't know if it's going to be – it might be – I think it'll be in the studio. But we'll see. We'll wait till next week. We'll tell you guys then. So peace out, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.